Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Teeny Fragrance. My name is John Novatini, and I provide unbiased, unsponsored, and unpaid for fragrance reviews, something that can be tricky to find on the internet these days. The scent of the day that we are going to be reviewing is Smoking Hot by Killian. Now, Smoking Hot by Killian was launched in 2023, late of last year, and instantly I was very curious about this scent. I really wanted to get my nose on it because when I read the description, it mentioned that it used Kentucky Tobacco Absolute. I'm from Kentucky. I've spent the majority of my life living in Kentucky, and I actually grew up right next to a tobacco farm here in Kentucky. So reading that they used this Kentucky tobacco and then paired it with the apple shisha, I was very interested to get to smell that, see if it reminded me of some of the smells of my childhood. So I finally got my hands on this. I was able to get this at a Killian perfume boutique in Las Vegas. And just off the bat, the smell from the bottle, I love it. I love it already. Now, this costs $290 for a full bottle. So this is not a cheap fragrance. Killian's fragrances, they're, apart from Clive Christian or Creed, it's about as expensive as a lot of fragrances that you can find in a normal store cost. Killian is not a budget fragrance, but we're going to review Smoking Hot today and see if this is something that I think is worth the money. If this is a fragrance that smells good, it lasts long, it actually captures the vibe that they're going for artistically. So without further ado, let's give this a shot. Now, Killian makes some absolutely dynamite fragrances. Love Don't Be Shy, in my opinion, is one of the best, more feminine perfumes on the market. Killian Angel Share is fantastic as well. They have a lot of hits. Now, is Smoking Hot going to be one of the next hits that Killian produces? We're about to see. Now, Killian's description of this fragrance, it goes a little overboard in my opinion, but what they say is that this smoky fragrance is a truly caramelized delight, featuring Kentucky Tobacco Absolute, infused with hookah drag of apple-flavored shisha tobacco and intense bourbon vanilla, invoking everything from European clubs to Eastern hookah lounges. Smoking Hot redefines what a smoky scent is, going almost where it's too hot to handle. So a very interesting kind of description. I get what they're trying to go for, this tobacco, boozy scent, and going from smoky scents that we usually categorize in our mind as almost dirty or extreme, and redefining that as almost a sweeter, classier, sexier vibe. I like I like that idea. But let's see how the opening notes smell. There's a bit going on here. So of the notes, the hookah, the tobacco, the bourbon, the vanilla, really what I'm getting is a appley cinnamon scent. I personally am not getting too much of the pure Kentucky tobacco smell. I'm getting a lot more of the apple shisha, which is tobacco. It's actually interesting that they have tobacco and shisha as two of the notes. Shisha is tobacco that is basically fermented in this kind of flavoring to give it a different, or marinated, not fermented, to give it different flavors and scents. So I feel like that really overpowers any of the raw Kentucky tobacco. I don't get much of the bourbon either. I really don't. And I'm pretty familiar with the bourbon smell since I live in Kentucky. And I'm really not getting that tobacco and bourbon smell that they promised in the notes. What I'm getting is apple shisha and cinnamon, which is great. I actually really like apple shisha. I've done hookah a few times, and apple is the flavor that I liked most. And I'm getting a lot of that. Very, very true to that description. But I'm just not getting the tobacco and the smoke that I was promised. Now, that might be part of what they're trying to do, redefine the smoky scent, tone it down, make it a little gentler, more classy, maybe more nuanced, but for me, I'm losing it. And it could be in the dry down more than the opening, but the opening, apple shisha and cinnamon, that's what it smells like to me. I'm gonna let this sit on my skin for a little while, and then I'm gonna come back and tell you what I'm picking up and how it's lasted on my skin, because performance hit at $290 for 50 milliliters, 1.7 ounces. This thing had better last a while on my skin. This better not turn into a skin set after 45 minutes. So I will be back in a few seconds. All right, it has been a couple hours. We've got the dry down of Smoking Hot by Killian. Here we go. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. It's grown on me. We're getting less of the sweet cinnamon apple and a little more of that tobacco bourbon that they talked about. It was not in the opening, but in the dry down, it's got a little more of a kick, a little boozier, a little more sophisticated, something that smells more than just your generic apple cinnamon fragrance, which is a great combination. But you can find that in a very nice fragrance for a lot cheaper than $190. But now we are getting some of the more notes that make this a more interesting, complex fragrance. And I really do think that it works very well. And I think that that is what Killian does better than maybe any other fragrance house in the game right now. They are able to create very unique, complex fragrances that don't smell weird. A lot of times when you get into niche perfumes and they're going for this unique, we're recreating this genre of fragrances, which is what Killian says. We're redoing the smoky fragrances. You run the risk of it being like, that's cool smelling, but it's weird. I wouldn't wear it. Killian, and this is a perfect example, toes that line perfectly of unique, complex, interesting, without going over the line into this is just kind of weird smelling and I wouldn't want to wear this. Honestly, if I had the money, this would be a buy. This would be a buy. Out of Killian's fragrances, this is up there as one of my favorites. And in terms of these high-end perfumes that you're going to find at, a Cosbar or a Neiman Marcus, this one holds its own against any other incredibly expensive fragrance. So initially, I wasn't super impressed with Smoking Hot because it smelled nice, but it smelled like something that I could buy for $120 at any. Really, you can just find those fragrances not at $290 that have that apple cinnamon spice. But this, as it aged on my skin, we got a lot more depth. We got a lot of that smoke and tobacco that isn't dirty like a lot of the smoky fragrances I've tried. One second. All right, I went out and grabbed this from the kitchen. I took the tobacco out so I don't get demonetized, but yeah, Smoking Hot's got it. It does have that Kentucky tobacco smell. After an hour or two, it comes out. This holds usually a jar of tobacco, Kentucky tobacco, and it really does achieve its goal, I think, of creating this apple, bourbony, smoky tobacco scent without getting weird, without getting intense or unwearable. And I just sprayed on Danielle Yossier's Amber Tobacco to compare. This is a much cheaper amber, apple, cinnamon, spice fragrance that I love, but to see, does this differentiate itself? Does Smoking Hot differentiate itself from the rest of these? And my verdict is that it does, and it's a fantastic fragrance, and I hope that someday I can get my hands on a full-size bottle, because this is one of Killian's best in the past few years. Thank you so much for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it or find it useful. And I encourage you to get a sample of Smoking Hot and try it out on your skin for yourself, because I think it's fantastic. And I would appreciate any subscriptions or comments or likes on this video to help me grow this channel. I've got about 75 fragrances in the back room that are waiting to be reviewed, so stay tuned.